There are a lot of people that are pretty low on the 2025 linebacker class, but I personally think it's a pretty solid group. It really depends on what you think of Jalen Walker. Is he a linebacker or is he an edge at the next level? And I really think that dictates the rest of this class, but I do believe there are some solid contributors at the next level. One guy who I was a little bit late to the party on, but someone who I think could be a very good player at the next level, is Ole Miss linebacker Chrispaul. No, not that Chrispaul from the Spurs, but Pooh Paul has been a really nice player throughout his collegiate career and is a guy who I like quite a bit in this class. I think he has all the tools that you're looking for in an NFL linebacker, but with the position that seemingly is getting drafted later and later, how high could Paul hear his name called in the 2025 draft class? That is what we will be discussing in today's video. But hey guys, if you guys are new to the channel, consider hitting that like and subscribe button. Also, be sure to check out my Patreon page, where for $5 a month, you guys will be given exclusive access to my in-depth draft guide and big board with over 550 players and scouting reports, and I am constantly adding more to the board on a regular basis. If you guys enjoy my NFL draft content, I highly recommend checking it out, as it is some of the best work that I have put together. Leave a comment on this video and let me know which players you guys want to see in a future episode. And without further ado, let's take a closer look at Chrispaul Jr. Chrispaul, or better known by his nickname Pooh, started his collegiate career with Arkansas. He was a really solid player for the Razorbacks, and he put up some really solid numbers for them. In 2023, he finished with 53 total tackles, 11 pressures, and 33 run stops on the season. He entered the portal and was one of the top linebackers available, and Ole Miss added him to what was a loaded transfer acquisition, and he had a career year for the Rebels. He had 72 total tackles, 25 pressures, and 54 run stops, all of which were career highs, and he has been a big-time riser in what some people view as a weaker linebacker class. The first thing that really stuck out to me when I watched Paul on film was his exceptional athletic ability. He had some serious range. As a guy who could move sideline to sideline, he had the ability to crash downhill, but where I was most impressed with Paul was his ability as a blitzer. I thought he timed his blitzes incredibly well, and he showed some serious potential to be a guy who could rush the passer from the linebacker position at the next level. He's a really fluid mover who has great change of direction, and he can fly around sideline to sideline, and I think he's got exceptional athletic ability. We mentioned the ability to come downhill, but Paul was one of the better run defenders in this linebacker class. He's an incredibly smart player who did a really good job of dissecting the run, and he had the ability to crash downhill and make plays in the backfield. We mentioned he had 54 run stops in 2024, which was by far a career high for him, and I thought he was consistently in the backfield and constantly making plays for a really good Ole Miss defense because of his athleticism, and I think he's got a really good football IQ as well. As a tackler, Paul is also incredibly consistent. He showcases really good tackling technique, and he is able to wrap up consistently and bring guys to the ground. He has a career 7.6% missed tackle rate, which is absolutely fantastic for a college linebacker. He has good tackling mechanics, and I think that's going to translate incredibly well at the next level. There is a lot to love with Paul, but I think he has two areas in particular I would like to see him improve. For one, he is slightly undersized for the linebacker position, coming in at 235 pounds. That's not a bad weight in the slightest, and I think he's going to be fine at the next level if he never adds on another pound. But I would like to see him play a little bit bigger. He is sometimes pushed around easily and has the inconsistencies where he sometimes can struggle to stack and shed blockers. I'd like to see him get a little bit bigger and a little bit stronger to help relieve that issue. The other area I have some slight concerns with are Paul's coverage abilities. Once again, I wouldn't say he's bad in coverage at all, but there were two areas where I thought he needed improvement. For one, it felt like he played with a timer in his head. He wants to rush the passer primarily and be used as a blitzer, and there were times where he would leave his assignment to come downhill and rush the passer, and I didn't feel like he had amazing zone instincts. I thought where he thrived in coverage was when he was one-on-one on an island with a running back or a tight end. However, I think that led to some issues as well. Paul had the tendency to get flat-footed at times, allowing people to beat him in one-on-one situations. I think he's going to be a fine coverage player at the next level, but I don't think he is an incredible player in coverage, and I think that could hurt him a little bit. Chrispaul Jr. is one of my favorite linebacker prospects I have watched in my 3 years of doing this. He absolutely flies all over the field, he can rush the passer, and he is an elite tackler and run defender. Yes, he isn't the biggest, he maybe isn't the strongest, and he needs to improve a little bit in coverage, but the intangibles and athletic upside is there, and I love his production. He is my number 3 overall linebacker in the class, and my number 2 inside linebacker in the class. I love his traits, and I think he's going to be a stud at the next level, and he is my number 56 overall player in the class. In terms of a scheme fit, I think that Paul will work best as an outside linebacker in a 4-3 scheme. He's not exactly a 3-4 outside linebacker that rushes the passer primarily, because I do think he brings some solid potential in coverage, but his ability to come downhill, blitz, and make plays in the backfield are tools that I think will translate very well as a strong or weak side linebacker at the NFL. And I think with his athleticism, he's going to be a problem for offenses at the next level. My player comparison for Chrispaul is Buffalo Bills linebacker Dorian Williams. Williams is an incredible athlete who's very fluid, has great speed, and he's a player who has sideline to sideline range. He has shown the ability to blitz, and he's a very good run defender on top of it. Yes, Williams has had some inconsistencies in coverage, but I think Williams was very good when Milano was out for Buffalo this year, and that Paul has some really unique athleticism that remind me a lot of how I felt about Williams when he was coming out of Tulane. Chrispaul Jr. has sideline to sideline range. He's a fantastic athlete and a guy who can do a little bit of everything from the linebacker position. He is an awesome player, and ultimately, I believe that Chrispaul Jr. will be a second-round pick in the 2025 NFL Draft.